lot more awkward for this entire presentation. So I like to see a little enthusiasm, some heckling.
Just John, only heckling John.
There we go.
Yeah, only heckling John.
Do a quick round of introductions. As mentioned, my name is John Kagan. I'm the VP of...
Microphone.
Better?
Yeah.
It's like one of my molars at this point. My name is John Kagan. I'm the VP of Search for Cogniscient Media, Mark USA brand. So.
My name is Slava Rybalka. I represent Chewy.
Aubrey Sabala, SVP Media Performance and Development at 360i.
And y'all just saw me, so you know who I am.
There's nothing I like seeing at the top of the morning other than death of the keyword being the most overhyped trend for this year. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about this overhyped trend. So the concept is, theoretically, as we move into more and more the robots will take our jobs kind of scenario, that the value of the keyword is losing its value, essentially. We're seeing scenarios of AI, non-keyword based search capabilities. So the concept is, do we even need to bother with using a search anymore, or a keyword for search anymore? So we pulled together this panel to try and get everyone's opinion on this one. So I'm going to hand this off to, well, ask everyone to kind of answer this one. Is the keyword as we know it, or as we've traditionally known it, still a thing?
Okay, I guess I'll start. It's certainly still a thing. It's not going anywhere. I don't remember who said that it might be a little wounded, but it's certainly not dead. I'm somebody who, and I will be like the last woman standing with a keyword for, going down with a ship. I started writing keywords and ads in 2003 at Google as a creative maximizer. So I still approach, anytime we do a build, I'll go with the teams. I'm like, can I write creative? Can I write some copy for you guys? But I think it's different. I think we have to embrace how audiences are at play. I think we're seeing a lot of automation across all of the different channels. We're seeing how we are looking at the different intent signals. Keywords are not becoming less important by any means, but they're part of the mix. I think they're just wounded, I think, is even a strong word for it, because you have to balance out, yes, we're starting to buy, like discovery ads, I think, are a great option from Google, where you're going a little bit more upstream, but you're starting to buy on audiences and buying an intent, and I think we're going to continue to see that trend. But then on the flip side, we're seeing a lot of the privacy regulations, both in Europe and the US, that if we can't use our first-party data, then we might be going back to purchasing the keyword or make it more important. So I think it remains to be seen, but by no means is it dead, and certainly I think it'll still be important for a while longer.
And I think, too, especially around brand, sometimes, I know with us at Cisco, we buy our brand terms. And they tend to be the best performing terms that we have. But, you do have things like, dynamic search ads, which, kind of take the whole keyword out of the element, right? But I think, to your point, Aubrey, it really, you have to kind of have a mix of the new technology, but you still need to kind of keep the keyword out there. I think there's always going to be a place for that. Maybe in time the relevance may change a little bit, but there's always going to be, I think, a home for it.
I think that keywords are still important because, in my opinion, Google still need to understand what's going on the page, what the website is about, and they derive lots of the information from the contents of the website. So I think that the keyword is still the thing.
So clearly we did not coordinate our answers prior to advance, because my thought process is that the keyword is dying off slowly. It's wounded, if you will.
Wounded.
But then if it's wounded, it's not dead yet, then do we still put the same degree of emphasis on it? Do we still use that as our first thing we think about, or do we put that in at the same level as we look at our audiences or our creative first?
I don't know. I think it really depends account by account and campaign by campaign. There's some worlds where we can't run DSAs. Like legally, we can't get approval to run ads that we don't actually have reviewed and approved from the client. So certainly the keyword and the creative and the audience is important. There are other clients where we're looking at, both, even if you look at a brand standpoint, but we're looking at things from an audience. Who are we trying to reach? How are we going to reach them? And keywords might be a little bit lower in the ranking of maybe not the first thing we think about, but more of in that channel mix.
Yeah, and I think it is. It's part of the mix, because I know I started back when Dogpile was a search engine, right? And that was even before Google was around, right? So, obviously, keywords were king and that sort of thing. But, it's with all of these new strategies that are coming up, I mean, you have to really kind of think about what's important for your customer, right? At the end of the day, who are you trying to reach? Audiences are definitely becoming a bigger play with this, but there's always going to be some of those scenarios where, you're still going to have to, look at keywords for your targeting.
And also, I mean, if you also look at search query reports and be able to look at, I mean, there's also the negative side of the fact, not just positive, exact match and broad match. There's, negative keywords too to help hone in on who you're reaching. But as market shifts so quickly, you can lean into some of the automation using search query reports, or you can do it still manually. And frankly, we do a mix of both. And SEO goes hand in hand with this as well.
For the other things that are important, I think that there are other factors that are coming into play. For example, there has been lots of focus put on technical analysis and technical SEO. Keyword used to be very important. Right now, the priorities have shifted to some other ranking factors, but it's still, keyword is still one of the important things that we should be paying attention to.
So to that point, Slava, we've seen the gradual shifts here and there on the paid side. How do you still think of keywords in their traditional sense of being the highest value, or are you looking at other on-page factors, linking? What really takes in from the SEO side for you?
Yeah, so in search engine optimization, we are focusing on ranking the websites, ranking the web pages at the top of Google search results. So definitely, keyword is one of the things that Google is paying attention to, but also things like page speed, for example, time to first byte, or for example, the content structure, the user path on the website. These things are also very important right now. So I would not say that one ranking factor is more important than the other ranking factor. I think it all depends on the algorithm. And I think that what's happening is we have lots of layers of algorithms, one on top of the other. And they all come into play. They all have different weights and different impact on ranking.
Are we seeing any kind of transition on what's becoming most important, or is it pretty much staying steadfast?
It's hard to tell. It's always evolving. In my opinion, what happened is there has been heavy focus on link building many years ago. Then there was this mantra when content is the king, and now technical SEO has got more prominence and more visibility and more attention. So it's always evolving. We'll probably see something else along the way, but for right now, I would say that we need to focus not only on keywords, but also on making sure that the websites are very fast, easy to navigate, and the content is very interesting to consumer and is very resonating with the search intent of the customer.
I mean, freshness of content too is a big one too. Making sure that you don't just set it and forget it. Always making sure that it's updated and things like that. And local search too is also something that evolves into that whole ranking factor as well.
So as we think more about automation, we think about essentially the keywordless ad units, ranging anywhere from Yelp to local service ads, DSAs, what have you, the discovery, which is not so much search, but more of a GDN glorified scenario. How are agencies and brands thinking about adjusting their strategy? Are they adjusting their strategy, or are they just trying to incorporate? Do you all have any angle for this one?
We're doing a little bit of testing there, but again, it's kind of like dipping our toes in the water. I mean, we do have an agency, that we work very closely with that manages our paid search. But a lot of the focus that we're looking at for 2020 is really going to be more around the audience piece of it. So we're not quite ready to get fully automated into that yet. So again, bigger companies sometimes take a little longer for some of these changes, but I think, there may be some possibilities of some testing with that. But, again, our search actually is we either have, brand focus or, brand supported keywords. So, there's not a lot of fluctuation outside of that. And again, it's also making sure that I'm old school. I love to have control over a lot of these things, especially when it comes to content and search. And You know, some of these smart campaigns that now Google has out there where you basically put it out there and it builds everything for you and then also, you know, matches you up to keywords and things like that. There's just that element of control that's still, I think we still want to kind of keep on.
And lack of visibility on reporting and optimization too.
Exactly.
So it's not only like set it and forget it, it's like, okay, but what's actually happening? The black box
'Cause you
effect.
don't know.
Yeah. It's almost like closer to SEO 5 to 10 years ago than it is, you know, to SEM. I have a similar answer. In fact, I'm part of an automation task force, and we spend a lot of time thinking about automation as an entire agency as well as team. Certainly, I run the search team in Atlanta, as well as looking at across automation across the agency, and we approach it in a couple different ways. You know, all of the different platforms that we're working with, they have their different, you know, a DSA or different automation opportunities that we have. We're also looking at what can we build in-house to make both of our lives easier as well as be more effective. So how do we layer either manual work on top of automated work or automated work on top of manual work? So we really approach it with man plus machine, not man versus machine. And we've seen, you know, some things work better. We've seen mixed efforts, but I think that is the focus that I have both for the entire agency as well as our team is how do we eliminate the repetitive tasks that really aren't making us smarter? We hire incredibly brilliant people, and I want them to stay and be challenged. And if we're still doing manual things like, okay, let's automate that out. That's an internal automation. But then how do we also take our expertise and, you know, many, many years of experience and work with DSAs and work with, you know, even discovery ads and other different channels that we can go and think through. We're marketers. Let's go act and like use our brilliance for the right thing, but also use automation to make our lives easier and better while still maintaining a bit of the control.
I think automation is something that also has got more importance recently because when you work with a big website which has lots of web pages, you always need to think about optimizing the web pages at scale. So you always want to think about ways to automate things. And sometimes you can use Python or some other programming languages to crawl websites and see what can be improved at scale.
So as we start looking into this automation and starting to not so much rely on it, but incorporate it as part of our database, right? What platforms or engines do you think are right now the front runners in these scenarios? Are you thinking Amazon, Google, Yelp, Bing, or something else?
A lot of the stuff we're starting to get into is around GA360. We're again stepping our toes into that a little bit where, as I had talked about some of the audiences that we're doing, we're working on, you know, building those directly in those platforms and then being able to, you know, push those out to the different media channels. So that's something that we're, you know, stepping into, you know, as we're, you know, trying to move forward with some of that automation efforts.
Yeah, we look at the platforms, but we also have a really large product team here at 360i that goes and builds a lot of our automation in-house too. And sometimes it's really complementary to what the platforms are doing, and sometimes it's just to give us another layer of insight that we might not have because I haven't built it yet. So we're tackling it both ways, but I feel super lucky that I work with a company that has something like 100 product team members that go and build us incredible dashboards and insights and analytics and automation as part of it, because I've never, except for working at Google, I haven't had that experience elsewhere, so it's been pretty amazing.
So, sorry, just cheating off my own here. I want to go back to the SEO side. So, Slava, one thing you had mentioned to me is you're looking more into the natural language processing from the organic standpoint. Obviously, this is less of you doing it and more of taking the automation and output for it. How are you building that into the strategy right now? Where is that standing in your hierarchy of needs?
So natural language processing, it's a part of machine learning, it's part of AI. And what you can do with natural language processing is that you could basically do the text analysis. So you could analyze either your website content that's already created, or you can analyze your competitors' content and see what can be improved or what can be derived out of that. Like if you could use maybe keyword tagging, or let's say you could extract 2-word or 3-word combinations and see what are the opportunities for content creation or content optimization on your website. So this is basically one of the use cases where you could use natural language processing.
So, and this is more so for Aubrey than anyone else, actually for Diane too. Your teams, as Aubrey mentioned, it's not man versus machine, it's man with machine. But as we also look at this as an adjustment to our industry, it's an adjustment to our jobs. Are we embracing it willingly, forcefully? Is it a nervous, cautious partnership that we're going into? Do we need to think about it more openly and say, you know what, it's not here to crush our souls and our jobs, it's here to enhance it? What are your kind of angle?
Definitely the latter. I don't know if it's just the nature of the curiosity-based team that I have, but one great example is we have one of the members of my team was doing a PLA restructure, and he realized that this was going to take like 2 or 3 weeks. He worked with our data scientist who sat like literally around the corner from us, and they built something called PLART, a great name, PLA restructuring tool, and it took a job of just, it had something like millions of products that we were going to go and have to manually classify, and it can do it within 7 hours versus 3 weeks. He was a media manager at the time. He's since been promoted. He's incredible. But I love that he looked at the problem, he saw that something was wrong, and then he went to go and make it different. That's the spirit of what we're seeing. So in our world, and perhaps it's the way we're explaining it, or perhaps it's just the people that we hire, but it's very much embraced. It's embraced and it's supported, and it's, oh wow, you need 2 hours to go and work on that? Great, I'll go and pick up that task so you have the time to do it. It isn't the 20% projects that, that Google advertise, that's usually really 120%. It's the collaborative nature, it's kind of in the lifeblood of what we do. So at least from my vantage point, it's something that people get really excited about. We try to create those opportunities, and there's a lot of support behind it. So I don't think people think they're about to be worked out of a job by automation. In fact, we're trying to embrace it in all the different trainings that we do, who we hire, and then how do we partner with our data science team and our analytics team and our other digital media partners.
And I think that's true for us too. I mean, I think it's not about being afraid that your job's gonna be eliminated. It's more about learning these new skills that can enhance your job and make you even more valuable. So to the same point as Aubrey, our data scientists, our analytics team, we all sit together. So we're all like in the same open area, so we can talk and understand. They help educate us too, and utilizing the things that they're learning to help make us do things and streamline things a lot better. Especially like when we were I was talking about the standard audience work that we did. I mean, that was work that the analytics and the data science team did, and then it was like, wow, this is amazing that we can actually incorporate this in, and it's just going to make us target our audiences better. So I think it's that collaboration and trust that everybody has to knowing that we're all in this together to again further ourselves down the road.
This is one of the trends I'm also observing right now when the SEO team is accompanied by the data scientists, and working together, these teams can achieve much more than just the SEO team by itself.
So that actually brings up another question. So traditionally most operations of size, analytics, data science, search, they're 3 separate teams. But I know over the years we've started pulling in our analytics team to be more of the strategy side for search. Do we start seeing that integration of the data science team simultaneously?
I've seen it, yeah. And I see it, I mean, I sit with the team on Black Friday, and I sit next to the data scientist on Black Friday to make sure that our forecasting is correct and our bidding by the hour is correct. So yeah, we're seeing it, and it's awesome.
Yeah, ours are definitely combined together. It was kind of separate at first because, we had analytics for quite a while, and the data science was kind of new moving in. But now it's like it's everybody's, kind of one big happy family, and, sharing their insights and, the being able to provide those, great KPIs that we're trying to find.
So let me ask the audience a quick question. For really anyone that's been doing this for more than 5 years, who here is familiar with the SCAG model? Really? Only that few? Wow. All right. So SCAG model is a single keyword ad group model where the concept is putting a single keyword ad group and building the ad copy solely to that keyword to maximize quality score. Now, as Google and Bing have both begun to loosen the match type rules, especially with the exact match, working out with the variances and misspellings, we started looking at it as like a broad match modified keyword. So then I asked to you all, do you think the SCAG model still is relevant to this day? There's some weird red-headed guy out there that keeps saying it's going away, but I don't know.
The weird redheaded.
Yeah, like sometimes, I mean, that sounds like a cop-out answer, but it can still be relevant at times for the right claim. But it's not something that we employ at scale usually.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that I used to be a big proponent of. I mean, it was kind of like put your superstar keywords and, you know, or even like one keyword in an ad group, write specific ad copy for it. But it's not so much, I think, the way things are moving forward. I mean, it's so time intensive to try.
The size of our clients also makes it really rare, like we might have like 2.
So I have one last question for the panel. As we look at years to come, so there's debate on whether or not the keyword is dying, dead, wounded, or if it's still going and completely relevant. Where do you see the concept of the keyword as we know it today within 3 years?
I think that eventually the role of the keyword will be diminishing, and more other factors, ranking factors, will come into play. Much more than we have right now, because Google is becoming smarter in determining what the content, what the page is about, and what they should be ranking at the top of the search results. So it's definitely, the progress is there, it's definitely evolving. So definitely, we're gonna see more ranking factors coming into play and more diversity in algorithms.
Yeah, I think it's still going to be part of the mix. Again, a lot really depends, at least from, you know, my thoughts around, you know, the privacy concerns. I think that really is one of the bigger different privacy laws that are coming into place. I think that might affect what part of the mix it's part of, but certainly there are so many other signals that we're seeing become important that I'd say it will firmly live in a mix. I don't think it will be leading, but, you know, it remains to be seen.
Yeah, I think with, you know, the whole AI, machine learning, you know, intelligence that's out there, it is going to be less, but I think there's always going to be situations and times where there's going to be a place where it'll still live. Just may not be too much.
Fair enough. And that concludes our panel.
Oh, thank you. Well, everyone. Well, before we let them all go, does anyone have any questions about the keyword?
Hi, Annie Stickney, JP Morgan Chase. With the death of the average position available for us in paid search, are you also editing your keyword strategies, or is that a further nail in the coffin?
So from our keywords, we moved away from this a little while ago, specifically on the brand keywords where we would do the position rank. We've moved to a focus on impression share. It ultimately, I can't guarantee the first position, not the end of the world, but as long as I can maximize impression share, it's the next closest scenario that we're going to get.
Same here. We you know, because it's, you know, sometimes it's not always being number one, but it's also kind of being, you know, where, you know, visually on the page you can still be somewhat near the top.
And whenever possible, ROAS.
Hi, Christina Smith, Keen Footwear. To me, there's a bit of a chicken and egg debate to be had with this topic around the idea of technology and platforms evolving to the potential death or wound of the keyword. But where does that leave the consumer in this space? And my chicken and egg question is do we think that the technology and platforms will evolve to where there is no keyword, and therefore that will force customers, consumers, users, fans, whatever you want to call them, to change their behavior in search? Or is that behavior already changing, and that's the impetus for the death of the keyword?
I think it's already changing based on, it depends on where you stand in the privacy constraint, but everything you do out there is now influencing the ads you see. We all know that. Privacy is an interesting topic these days, and we'll dive into that later. But I don't know that we've seen, at least from my standpoint, it hasn't changed the way that I search on things. I just find them quicker and it's a lot more relevant. It does change the way that I suggest keywords, or I look at other different signals, and I put a lot more weight in that, because if I already know X about the consumer, I'm not going to have to buy every single keyword because we already have so much intent signals going into there. But if you're thinking from a consumer standpoint, I don't know that the average consumer necessarily knows that their searches might be changing little by little. They might notice that they're just finding what they're looking for a little quicker.
Well, I think consumers are getting smarter in how they search too. I think, people are starting to realize, long tail searches are going to give them the much better results. So I think, people are learning and, understanding that, there's it's not just the way it used to be. And then also based on the results that they're getting. So, I mean, I think it's, people, I think our consumers are getting smarter in that sense, but I think that else is going to drive is, how that is going to play going forward and how search is going to play out.
I think that the technology platforms have become smarter in understanding what the search intent is, and there is a trend. I mean, all these tools are improving in doing that. And I think we as a marketers need to be focusing more on understanding what the consumer really wants, what's the true need behind the keyword, what's the problem they're trying to solve. And if we understand that, that will secure our wins in future.
Okay, well now we're just going to move to a short 10-minute presentation from Alex at Perform Media, and then we'll do coffee after that. Okay, Alex?